Giggle HQ has a security team. We don't need random Twitter people. Moving on.
So the main topic, I thought it'd be worth talking about SolarWinds, because I think that's probably the biggest thing that's happened over the last couple of months.
Yeah, it's major breakthrough on space travel, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, it's like literally how you go like through the supply chain for space travel, particularly if you look at sunbursts.
Very good. So SolarWinds is an IT management software, and they have like remote monitoring tools and things like that. So they're like really deep in their customers' networks. Lots of trust. Because they used to like monitor and like report on all the infrastructure and assets, and they got popped, right? I think was it FireEye was the first company that actually reported.
It was FireEye. So December 13th was when FireEye put their kind of blog out on it, and they were talking about the sunburst backdoor then. So they did like.
Can we please call it by its official name? Fireman Anti. Expandient FireEye. No.
Oh yes. Very good.
So yeah, they've got like they've got a blog up, and they kind of go through an executive summary of everything that happened. Yeah, I mean, it was a global intrusion campaign. Really, it was quite a big deal in terms of a supply chain attack.
Yeah. So from what I remember, it was FireEye that like reported it first, and then a few days later, they realized it was because of SolarWinds, right?
No, wasn't it the other way around? Didn't FireEye get popped, and SolarWinds, they jumped from FireEye to SolarWinds?
So I understand that FireEye discovered a supply chain attack that had Trojanized SolarWinds Orion, which was like business software updates in order to distribute malware that they call Sunburst.
Yeah. So it was FireEye was attacked or got breached.
Fireman Anti.
A lot of their like red team tools got leaked, and then a few days later, stolen. Yeah, and then a few days later, it was like people figured out why, and it was SolarWinds. And SolarWinds, of course, their customers are huge, like Microsoft, Malwarebytes, Cisco, like all these companies. And then people realized that they had been breached as well. And people are still going and figuring out whether they were, that their stuff had been breached through this. There's a website, I don't know if anyone's been to it. It's solarleaks.net, I think, or something like that, where I don't know how legitimate it is, but they're selling.
Based on the pricing, it looked like it was legit.
Yeah, so partial Microsoft code for $600,000. Cisco source code and bug tracking.
Multiple products for Cisco for 500,000.
Yeah.
And FireEye's red team tools were right down at the bottom for 50.
Like 50K, yeah.
Yeah, but FireEye actually dealt with it really well in terms of their red team tools being really leaked. Well, I mean, from the way that it was accepted from our community. So it was actually accoladed, if I remember, like bearing in mind this is back in December. And, for any listeners who aren't in the industry yet, don't do it. For any listeners who aren't in the industry yet, we move at a rapid pace in InfoSec, and things literally do become old news very quickly. But the way that it was dealt with from FireEye, they were very, very open. They were very upfront about it. They released very open statements. They dealt with it. March clearly does not agree with anything I'm saying. Come on, hit me. Hand me my ass.
I have no comments to make on this topic whatsoever, and I will be avoiding any commentary on Fire Ant Man Eye for the duration.
Do you remember how when it first happened and when they said it was a sophisticated attack? And everyone was like, always say a sophisticated attack. It probably wasn't. But this actually feels like it was an actual sophisticated attack. No, this wasn't just them leaving a database open to the public or something. It was
a widespread campaign.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't like you say, like something just being left open. It wasn't a script kiddie attack. It was a campaign.
Yeah, I feel like this really was sophisticated. But yeah, like I remember on Twitter, like when it was happening, everyone was kind of criticizing FireEye for using that term, sophisticated attackers. But yeah, in this case, I think that was actually warranted. So,
and then their employer got pwned.
Whose employer?
So everyone was criticizing FireEye, and then their employer got pwned.
Well, yeah, exactly. So with some of the details of it, like as Saskia mentioned, there was sunburst. So I think this is what this was what they called the backdoor. So from how I understand it, the attackers actually managed to add a backdoor into the SolarWinds Orion code base. And I think the thing that was like most interesting about that is the attackers actually managed to follow a lot of the coding standards of SolarWinds, so that it wouldn't be detected as quickly. So they used.
So actually, this is interesting. This is some feedback that I had from a threat modeling workshop recently, which is where I was talking about like how we think and identify threats and things to actually quite technical people, but people who aren't au fait, let's say, with some of the language that we use in security. So I'm not suggesting this is gatekeeping per se, but this is like a podcast that we want other people to be able to engage with. So when we talk about supply chain attacks, like Jose, Jamal, Ali, what do we mean by the supply chain attacks? Why is this specifically important?
Do you guys want to cover this, or
yeah? So with the supply chain attack, you're attacking the like a supplier, I guess, of an organization. So rather than attacking the organization itself, you're attacking a company that they use. It could be in this case because if they can compromise SolarWinds, then they're able to compromise all of their customers. Or it might be if you are trying to target a specific organization, their security is stronger than their suppliers. So you would attack their suppliers so that you have a way to like build the trust so that you can then attack the organization. Like I guess like a very like simple example might be you attack an organization so you can access the emails. That you're trying to attack one of their customers, so then you can send an email from the supplier to the actual target and be like, hey, send me this or give me access to that or whatever. And because you're able to send it from a trusted email address, you're building on that trust.
So that's kind of interesting for me. Like, I mean, I do know what a supply chain attack is, but to hear it from your perspective is kind of interesting to see how I would see it from my perspective. So when I'm doing stuff like threat modeling, for example, I always put a trust boundary around what it is that we're threat modeling. This isn't something that I came up with. Obviously, this is something that is like an embedded methodology, and Adam Shoestack will know way more than I do. But that trust boundary is outside that trust boundary. I can't control this. So I have another mechanism for controlling it. That mechanism is that the third party is in control of it, or it's like a user, for example. So I have like specific policies or terms and conditions. So when something sits outside the trust boundary, but then actually has an impact on something inside the trust boundary, for me, that would be a massive, massive issue. So if I'm trusting somebody outside of my trust boundary to be able to be secure, and then they're not, and that has an impact on me, then now I wouldn't really, from my perspective, I'd be trying to understand where the responsibility lies. So those trust boundaries are in place in terms of the work that I do, which is around risk, around regulation, to try and understand where responsibility sits. So I would see supply chain attacks as being actually quite complicated from a number of different perspectives.
So if you're using a third-party solution, then there's a risk associated with that, right? You're also offsetting some of the risk because, dealing with risk, you can accept it, you can offload it to a third party, or you can mitigate it, somewhere else somehow. And in that case, you're bringing in an external solution within your environment, and there's a risk involved with that. And And one of those risks is that, that software might be vulnerable, or that software might have been compromised already. And in that case, you would have like a supply chain attack. I'm much more interested in what kind of supply chain attacks are we going to see as a consequence of this.
Are we going to see people copying this?
Not only like copying, but like directly from this. If they have like infected software running at Cisco and Microsoft, they've got access to the source code from Cisco and Microsoft, from the SolarLinks website. What kind of supply chain attack are they, performing right now on those code bases? So that now whenever I install Windows or my router or whatever, it already has a backdoor in. Like the direct consequences from this, because with this, they compromised other big companies that we also consume products from. And how did they compromise those other companies?
Yeah. So from what I've seen, so Microsoft didn't seem like particularly concerned about it. Because it was, some source code leaks. Of course, they have an issue with that, and they worked hard to find like what was going on. But it doesn't feel like, people have been adding code to the Windows OS.
Microsoft would have a much more reliable build system and chain than this.
Well,
you wouldn't be able
Microsoft,
to just insert some random crap.
But then there's Cisco and Malwarebytes.
Cisco certainly won't. Cisco certainly won't have a better
so there you go.
chain.
And if by compromising Cisco software and backdooring it, you basically have the ins and outs of the whole internet.
I mean, I imagine you're jostling with all the other backdoors in the Cisco.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta find some extra space there to fit in your backdoor.
Exactly. It's like 90% backdoor, 10% actual code.
It feels like 2021 was the start of just all of the backdoors being opened up and no one knowing where they're going from for all sorts of things. But this one seems to be the one that's hit the most. What's the wider impact of this?
I guess we'll have to wait, but the thing I find interesting about this one is because they managed to actually add the backdoor into the code. So normally we say that if the update is signed, or there's always like a big deal when an update isn't signed, or when it's coming over HTTP or whatever. But in this case, you're doing all the right things. You're installing signed updates. It can be over an HTTPS, so encrypted, and it's still going to get compromised because it's an actual change to the legit code. Yeah. So, but I don't think people know yet how that was added in. There was some talks about was it JetBrains? With TeamCity, their CI/CD server being compromised, but then JetBrains has said that isn't the case, and I've not seen any evidence of it.
Here. Was it an existing backdoor, or they've created a backdoor?
No, so the attackers managed to somehow compromise SolarWinds. They added a benign, just some code changes to the SolarWinds source code, just to make sure that they could. And that was obviously pushed in through updates to all the customers. And then after that, they added the backdoor. And what that backdoor Sunburst does is I think it checks to make sure that it's not being analyzed, right? So it looks at the processes that are running on the server. It checks that whether it's been running from a specific process name. And it also checks that it's been over 12 days or something since the update has been installed.
Oh, wow. Tippy, is the dev among us? Someone creating a backdoor in your systems?
I mean, it was an interesting read in the way that they built it so that it wouldn't be detected and it didn't affect builds and stuff. It was interesting, and it's kind of a scary thought that someone could put code in and you not notice.
Yeah, and as I said before, they actually followed the the coding styles of which means they must have been kind of quite deep in there. But it also meant that when it came to reversing the application to find out what was going on, they couldn't use obfuscation techniques because it needed to look at first glance like it was real code. So I think it waited 12 days or so. And then
oh my God, they've really given this the wrong name. I would have called this the wolf in sheep's clothing, or something like a cuckoo.
Yeah,
cuckoo's nest or something. I feel like they've really missed a trick with this one.
Well, next time we find something like this, we can name it.
Well, why don't we just build one?
We can
Sorry,
build
we
it.
never do that.
Yeah. And so
that sounds criminal.
so and then I think the backdoor it like opened up a web shell when the attacker wanted it to.
It pulled down a custom executable format that they'd written themselves. That was a custom Carbon or Cobalt Strike implant that was basically turned into their executable format. But they basically were loading their own like format PE format. It wasn't actually a standard PE, which is quite impressive.
You seem to know quite about this, Alistair.
Yeah, funny that.
Because he's a security researcher.
I've read some things. I'm well informed.
Could you share those blog posts with our audience?
But like maybe a list of references.
There are no lists of references that I can give you. No.
This is all just Ali's private research.
No, I think it was actually in either FireEye or someone else's thing. Maybe something. But yeah,
FireEye.
It's not quite as detailed as what you're telling me.
I think it was Semantic where they found that part. Yeah, so
someone definitely.
This was actually fairly recently where they found that they called it Raindrop, and that was the Cobalt Strike dropper, based on it was very similar to what's it called? Not Raindrop, but
Are you thinking of UNC245?
No.
Probably something like that. But anyway, we're getting distracted. But yeah, it was a really interesting technique that. I'm surprised that they.
Sorry, I turned up just quickly. So for the thing that you just mentioned, the Raindrop thing, the Cobalt Strike like delivery thing, that was, from what I read, that was actually built from a modified version of 7-zip. So they took the 7-zip code, added their stuff into it, and then used that. Now the 7-zip code wasn't actually used for anything, but of course, seeing 7Z DLL and then reversing it, and you start seeing like all the 7-zip stuff, you start to think it's like fairly benign. But I just thought that was like kind of a cool technique to take like an open source, like well-known binary, but then just like kind of shoehorn your stuff into it and then use that to deploy like the Cobalt Strike.
I once saw a web shell disguised as the GPL licensing.
Yeah,
which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a way to stop people getting suspicious, I guess.
Yeah. And just for a little while, you're right. You just need to stop them from being suspicious long enough.
Yeah. Also, I imagine that you're gonna have like, I don't know. There's probably going to be like things in some AV scanning engines that are going to see these strings and think, 7-zip.
Yeah,
who cares?
true.
It might be using a weird thing, but that's just what 7-zip does. So
yeah,
we'll skip that heuristics and we won't alert in that kind of thing.
And I mean, it all stems from a trusted process anyway. So
yeah. So there was Sunburst, which was that backdoor, and then I think there was Supernova, which was the malware that was delivered. I think that there was actually two parts to this. It was the web shell DLL that got added.
Web shell assembled in memory during Supernova execution, thus minimizing its forensic footprint. Didn't have a digital signature though, which is weird.
Yeah, well, which I mean,
temporary file replacement also, as well through the malware, or am I wrong with that one?
Say that again, sorry.
So there was like file modification or file replacement through the malware as well.
I think through the through Sunburst it could.
Unless I'm remembering this incorrectly, but yeah, there was something to do with like it was temporary file replacement. So
quite possibly.
I'm not sure. Somewhere then?
No,
I mean, if it's RCE code exec, you can do whatever you want, right?
So the ransomware, it was just like very like quiet, I guess, malware and backdoor deployment. And then from what I read, once this was in a system, it would so the Trojanized download, the Trojanized update would be downloaded and installed. The malicious DLL would be loaded. Then the malware, does some checks, make sure that it's not on like a honeypot and stuff, does some recon on the system, and then it reaches out to a C2 server and sends details about the host to that server. And I think eventually Microsoft managed to take control of that domain. and was able to at least stop it for a
There
little
were
while.
some IP address issues as well around location.
One of the
I'm not sure.
No,
one
no,
of the
it definitely was.
one of the interesting things about this as well is that the SolarWinds software, the Orion thing, would integrate into Office 365. So from that alone, you'd be able to automatically gain access to the email servers of
Ooh.
any kind. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Apparently that's how they managed to get fancy certificates and things by pulling them out of the email inboxes.
And yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So certificates, credentials. And there you go. And then you will have repository information, everything you need.
Yep. I also read that it was so once it connected to the C2 server, there was actually a manual operator that was taking control at that point, depending on what the organization was. So for some of the big ones, and then they would take control and like send their payloads through it and stuff, and then exfiltrate like the really awesome important data like source code and red team tools and stuff.
What happens next, like in terms of like containment, cleanup?
I mean, it's still happening, right? It is not an easy thing. There are people saying that I read this one tweet where somebody said they were kind of laughing along with everyone until they realized that their organization was using SolarWinds.
That's literally my joke.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying that there was a tweet that said the same thing.
Just that's funny when you tell it, Jamal.
I wasn't trying to tell a joke. I was telling about a tweet. So yeah, I saw a tweet from Hacks for Pancakes. So Leslie Carhart, and she was saying that like weeks into the response and the IR that was going on, the biggest issue she's facing is whether the organizations actually know whether they have SolarWinds Orion like installations and the versions or not. So yeah, like I mean, definitely, I think the big thing here is people don't even know what their assets are, which is so ironic because SolarWinds is used to find organization assets. So yeah, it just seems kind of funny to me that
still being used to find organizations' assets. It's just not by the actual organizations.
Very true. Yeah. So yeah, like once these attackers got in, they as we said before, credentials was a big thing, getting like global admin and stuff, and then finding ways to get persistence.
Okay, so if they were using Office 365 or Azure, why would SolarWinds be even a thing?
Organizations can use SolarWinds and also use Azure AD and stuff. Obviously.
I mean, if I have Azure, I'm already managing my assets in a much better way than SolarWinds.
You could have both an Azure asset.
Don't protect him, Alistair.
It's not about protecting me. It's about like what the obvious answer is.
He's like a helpless baby.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so they got global admin. What then?
Yeah, and credentials. I mean, that was obviously like a big part of their goal in order to gain persistence, and then obviously exfiltrate the data. And I think they were actually using some of the SolarWinds like custom protocol stuff to exfiltrate as well. I think Ali, you were saying some of this earlier.
They did actually use a similar protocol to the SolarWinds thing. They mimicked the whole thing. It's all very fancy actually. It's a nice backdoor. Wish I'd written it.
Well, you could have done it. It's just you don't have access to SolarWinds.
Yes.
There you go.
So forgive me if this has already been questioned and answered, or maybe it hasn't, but like the stuff I was looking at, it doesn't feel like it was. But do we have an understanding of motivation at this point or attribution?
So
world dominance?
Attribution, not attribution. I don't think is a word. Attribution.
Hang on, I can find my attribution dice somewhere. But someone has already rolled theirs, and they said it's Russia.
Not only Russia, but 1,000 Russian developers.
Cozy Bear.
No. 1,000 Russian software engineers.
Yes.
1,000.
But that just seems nonsense. Like, how could you at this point? Like there can't have been enough containment, let alone investigation, to say that, right? No.
Yes. Plus, it's like super overkill.
I mean, 1,000. That's such a high number.
Yeah. I mean, you need like 5 good guys. That's it.
Yeah, 1,000. But we have all of your passports. We know that you were born in Omsk. There's all of these oblasts. You have to be assigned to one of them. It just seems, yeah.
Maybe it's like that whole like monkey typewriter thing. If you throw 1,000 Russian hackers and they all bang at the keyboard,
man,
you get a.
Listen. I'm gonna smack talk the Russians.
Me neither,
on this
man.
podcast.
You don't know what you're doing.
Let's not fuck around.
No, I didn't say the Russians are bad. I'm saying that if you just throw like
you just compare them to monkeys.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I'm saying 1,000
bashing on a keyboard.
I completely remove myself from this conversation.
I'm saying that's how good they are.
My views are not reflected on Jamel's.
Putin, I have no.
My name is Kopolanskevich. I love the motherland. Я люблю русский, говорю по-русски.
I'm saying, actually, it's good. A good thing. Like you throw 1,000 Russian hackers or something. They type
Oh my god! I can see the FSB behind
and
them.
they get this amazing global hack for SolarWinds that gets them into Microsoft and other things. That's
Это хорошо. Это хорошо. Это правда.
Whatever Saskia said.
But yeah, like as Saskia was saying earlier, I think this is a really good example of like a supply chain attack, and it's definitely one I'll be using in future. When I'm talking to clients and things. I mean, not everyone needs to worry about this kind of thing, but some companies do. When they are bringing in third parties like this. And interestingly enough, like a lot of the time when I do look at some of these like security systems, they are kind of insecure. Not saying that SolarWinds is, it seems like given this was the attack, it seems to be actually, it must be pretty safe for them to have to check, like modify the code. But yeah, a lot of the times these things are
it's
bad.
It's not really about being safe. It's just much stealthier if it's just embedded in the code.
Yeah.
Plus, use the same thing with using their protocols to extract data, etc. Because their protocols will already be fingerprinted on network IDS.
Networks, yeah.
It will be open on firewalls, everything.
Yeah. People will already know.
It's definitely not 1,000 Russian software engineers. It's a team of very skilled people that planned this and they strategized. They found SolarWinds, they compromised them, they compromised their software, then they compromised the source code with their backdoor, and now who knows what else they might be compromising. That's really the interesting part for me.
Yeah, this is definitely not their first rodeo, is it? Right? I mean, if they've gotten this down that easily.
I don't know. What would you say, Alistair?
I'd say this is definitely not their first rodeo. They've definitely there's got to be other companies that they've done this to.
Could you name a few that you might that might come to mind?
I mean, no.
Possibly the Russian thing is a deflection, maybe. Alistair.
I mean, it's almost certainly Russians. It's it's always Russians.
It's either 1,000 Russians or one alley. And we're not sure which.
Definitely not one alley.
Interestingly, by the way, can I interest any of you in any red team toolkits? Do any of you are you in the market for a red team toolkit?
I don't know if anyone saw, but there was a really good analysis of the the backdoor from a guy called Colin Hardy on YouTube, where he
I don't use YouTube, so.
Well, he took the code and showed people how to reverse it and stuff. I was just really impressed by kind of the detail he went into. It was very high level, and he didn't he just kind of showed what different parts of the code was doing and how it was checking the processes on the system and stuff. But yeah, as I said before, the thing that kind of I found that was interesting was because it needed to kind of blend in. They couldn't use obfuscation. I believe at least parts of SolarWinds were written in .NET, so it was very easy to reverse, and there was no additional things that they could add there, else it would stick out more. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting.
Is it because of legacy infrastructure, legacy code, whatever? Legacy issue.
So almost the opposite, right? So again, we don't know how SolarWinds was initially attacked. But we know that they are using TeamCity, which is CI/CD. That's like a DevOps type thing. So they are using modern development techniques. .NET is a modern library and stuff. So if it is due to them using, and again, I'm not saying it is JetBrains, but that is what's being floated around. Like JetBrains or GitLab, people are saying, or like one of the things is almost the opposite. It's because it is all modern stuff, and it could just be like one thing was misconfigured. Some GitLab had credentials in it or something like that, and they managed to use that to. But one of the but yeah, like there was as I said, a really good video analysis, which I'll add a link to in the notes. But one thing that I kind of didn't really consider, but I kind of saw in some of the write-ups and stuff, is that the owners of SolarWinds dumped a lot of stock before the hack was made public, and this is something that I have seen companies do a few times. I mean, that's obviously not like cybersecurity related, but in terms of business and stuff, I definitely do see companies, they know that a breach has happened, and then they sell a load.
Well, it happened
stock.
months and months before it was discovered, didn't it? Like in March or something, or
what? Where all the stock was sold?
No. As in when the malicious code was injected. So maybe they knew about it before someone said anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine the owners would have known before, like many other people.
Yeah, they would have known like a few days beforehand.
Mm.
Yeah, and of course, I think this is quite illegal to do, like to sell, like it's insider trading types things.
Yeah, I mean, so wherever their stocks floats, the exchanges will have regulations against that, so they'll be under investigation, and if anything gets proven that it was malicious trading or ill-intended or whatever, they'll get their stocks back and lose their money.
But I wonder if
people go to jail for this kind of stuff, so.
I wonder if it's worth keeping an eye on like company owners and seeing when they do start to sell their stocks, and whether that might indicate a breach. Because again, I've heard of this happening a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an interesting like IOC, I guess, out of band IOC.
Exactly.
But it's probably a little bit hard to keep track. I mean, it would never work by itself, I think. Like you couldn't just come to that conclusion, because so many things can be happening. If it's like one owner, maybe the guy just wants to buy a boat or whatever, and even if it is a big company with multiple shareholders, maybe there's just like something that we're not aware of, like the company is getting sold and they don't agree with it, or they are about to be to get fired or to leave the company because of something else, they don't agree with it. So by itself, I don't think it's enough. But I mean, it is something that if you're particularly invested in a company, then maybe it makes sense to observe, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's all we've got for this episode. A long one.
Well, it's a double episode basically.
Yeah,
because we missed last time.
Yeah. I mean, I might split this up. Maybe we'll do the first section and then we can do the second section. We could post it like 2 episodes this month, maybe.
So the feedback that I've had from like people who've been listening to this quite a lot and actually do enjoy it is that if it's more than an hour and a bit, they have to break it up themselves naturally. So we should probably break it up for them based on the subject matter, because they're not quite sure when to stop.
Yeah, I can definitely look into that. So I guess what that means is that we will wrap things up. Does anyone have anything they want to plug?
I have something I want to plug, but it won't work over audio, so it's fine.
Well, tell me.
Oh my God! Why is it visual?
Well, I have to show it here. I'll show it. Someone else plug something.
Sure.
I've got nothing to plug. There are the Cyber Senpais that we've done nothing with since we started it.
So Chippy and I, we have created, and we're not quite sure where they are, but we have Rex hats.
Oh, we do
now. Orange beanies with the Rex logo on. We're pretty sure we didn't order enough of them, so we probably need to order some more, and we're not sure where they are. But
how can people get some?
How can I give you my money?
Well, I mean, like, I think if I think we should maybe do a competition. We've got like some pretty cool rec swag coming. We've got some stickers and some hats, but we're also kind of playing around with a couple of ideas for some pretty cool Rex swag. So we're going to have some like Rex Converse.
How about this then? If anyone, because we post this podcast on like most platforms, but also on YouTube. Shall we say that anyone that can leave the funniest dinosaur joke gets a some Rex swag?
And it has to incorporate SolarWinds.
Make it really niche.
I feel like there's going to be one comment, so maybe we shouldn't like restrict it so much. I mean, basically, you got to do like a.
Basically, what we have on offer at the moment is an orange beanie with Rex embroidered on it and some stickers. However, in the pipeline for the Rex swag, we do have Rex Converse, Rex hoodies, and also we're going to have a Rex skateboard at some point. So like a full Rex deck for a skateboard.
Oh my God.
Well, let's not promise that yet. Let's just say if anyone can leave a comment on YouTube with the funniest joke, then they'll get a beanie and some Rex stickers.
But they need to give us the address.
They will need us, obviously.
We'll see if anyone comments first, Asculus.
Can the participants of the podcast also participate?
Sure.
Okay.
More engagement.
Are we going to have any guests this year, Jay?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see how how things go.
Can we get Moxie on to talk about Signal and WhatsApp?
Are we to try and get Moxie?
Yes.
I can see if I can ask him.
It just moves from the Joe Rogan podcast to the Grey Hats podcast. Keeps moving up on life, I guess.
Anyone want to anyone give any talks this month or anything else they want to like plug or talk about?
No, I've just been doing source code reviews and playing with my tiny monitor.
What is that monitor?
So it's a 1920 by 1200 touch screen, and it's like I think this is 10 inches. I don't know. I never got something this big.
I do have a smaller one. As I said, it's about this big, Jose.
He's gone.
I mean, it's still a decent size.
Okay.
And I use it for my Raspberry Pi.
Okay. Does it take HDMI inputs?
It does, yes.
So I have this is my inputs. Whoever's on audio, they don't give a fuck about what's happening now.
Is that everyone's audio because we don't release a video?
Okay, so there you go. So this is completely useless content, but I'm very happy with my tiny monitor.
I'm happy that you're happy.
Thank you.
I love that I live in a world where men argue about who's got the smallest. That's the thing that we're aspiring to now.
Yeah. But then we can impress you with our, we have attack banks and whatever.
Exactly.
Right, Jamal?
Never failed to impress me.
It works. It works. Chippy sometimes reads my pen test reports and she must get flustered.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. HSTS not set. Ooh.
It's mostly typos.
On that note, thank you everyone for listening. Reach out if you want to talk to us. But don't reach out. Yeah. But look, if anyone does have anything they want us to talk about or share, drop us an email, leave us a comment.
Do we have an email?
Yes, I have an email. People can find it.
Don't reach out to me.
Kill me at Grey Hats.
It would be easier for you to just comment on YouTube or reply to our tweets.
Realistically, anyone listening probably knows me. So reach out if you want us to talk about anything that you have. If you've created some open source tooling, you want us to mention it. Always happy to. So I guess thank you for listening to the first and second episode of 2021. And we will all catch you next month. Bye.
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 Peace.